feel like it's a social work program, so it's built to be work to ensure that people are being more diverse in general. However, there is a lack of diversity in the program, I would say.
I went to school a long time ago, and it was not as diverse as it is here. So for me, this is diverse.
Seeing people in the MSW program, I think we talked a lot about diversity, but I don't necessarily see enough of that reflected in the classrooms and in the staff.
I don't think there is a lot of diversity, but on the other hand, sometimes it's very hard for people of minority to enter into the program, because in order to complete this program, you practically have to work full-time, get outside support, or quit your job. And sometimes some people, especially if you're from a minority race, it's tough to do that because you have to depend on your job.
Okay, now the MSW program is a different animal because I think the social work profession has a very unique mission, and they talk about racial equality and diversity. However, they don't practice what they preach. We do a lot of talking about, equity and, fighting for racial justice. But when you look at the student body and when you look at the faculty, there is a gap of it doesn't exist.
So I think the most ironic story I have is that when I was applying to the MSW program, one of my references, which was a professor here, actually put that I was surprisingly well-read. And that struck me as something that was kind of insulting, and I wasn't sure what surprisingly meant. So that was a ting, kind of, to me, as far as, is this going to be a program where I'm going to feel welcomed?
It's kind of confusing because like some schools, they say like we accept this percentage of this rate to keep it diverse and stuff. But when you break down the numbers, it looks good on paper, but when you notice it and you see it yourself, it doesn't look the same as it would on paper. Like they want to make it more diverse by accepting this many students. So sometimes I do question myself, like, did I get into the program because I'm Asian or because of my grades, or like, however else they determine if you're eligible to be part of the program. So sometimes I do question it because although I think I am a good student and I was a good student at BSW,
I struggle with wondering if good things happen to me because I deserve it or if it's because I'm black. So for example, when I got into this program, I struggled a lot with, did I earn this or do they need a black person in the class? And I think for me, and again, I could be internalizing because I internalize a lot of things, but I think that I feel a lot of, I don't know if the right word is pressure. Maybe it's pressure. I feel a lot of times that like when I'm at school, I have to be on. And it's this weird feeling because like whenever I'm just like chilling, for lack of like when I'm just hanging out, like just mellow, people think something's wrong. And people are just always like, what's wrong, what's wrong, what's wrong? And I'm like, I can't just have a minute to be like chill. I have to be like smiling and happy for everyone around me to know that I'm okay. But I don't see that happening to the other students that are not of color.
We preach this stuff, but yet we're lagging behind on implementing it, right? I mean, you overhear people saying they think I got into the program because I was black, or people were saying, oh yeah, we have a diverse class, when usually I'm the only black person in my class. I mean, I'm happy when we have 2 or 3. I mean, my case consultation, I think we have about 4. And that's like the most you'll have out of any class.
For instance, like in our research class, let's just say that. I feel like a lot of us are just, we're civil with each other, but in HBDO where you're able to talk about experiences and you want to share, sometimes I feel like I don't want to, depending on what it is, but then I feel like I need to spread the knowledge of different ethnic background, history, I should say.
But sometimes I struggle with like, do you just want my opinion, or do you want me to be the token black person to respond to whatever you want to know?
Well, I mean, I think there's always in a group full of people that are white and have sort of some unconscious privilege that they may not understand. I think there's always going to be conversations that need to be more informed or need to change. But I don't think it's unusual. It's not okay, but not atypical. I think for where we are.
I thought I would see a little more diverse group in the classes, and you know, it's always tough when the issues of race comes up, because if you're the only person of color, or you're the only black person in the classroom, or the only person of immigrant heritage in the classroom, you seem to take a back seat and everybody else is looking at you. They seem to think that you represent everybody, so therefore, you know, you have the answers, and you know, it's very uncomfortable when the issues of race comes up in the classroom, because everybody seems to just, you know, all eyes are on you now, and they want to hear your response. And sometimes I think students try to jab at you a little bit to see if you would react, to see if you would be this, you know, angry individual trying to defend the cause.
I mean, we talk a lot about dual perspective and having a nurturing environment versus having a sustaining environment. And one of the nurturing environments is supposedly supposed to be your school atmosphere and the people that you relate to in school. I find it the opposite. I find it's a sustaining environment. I find that I'm always judging my behavior and managing my behavior by my oppression and my oppression background, which is being a person of color.
I guess what I could say is that when I find that people are particularly privileged and uninformed of their privilege, I find it more difficult to interact with them.
Maybe offering more evening classes probably would help, or even weekend classes, because I was able to take some those 3-day weekend classes, which actually really did help me in finishing in 3 years, because I was able to go from part-time to full-time. And maybe cyber, if more of those hybrid classes, if they could, maybe that could help.
I think building opportunities for people who are facing larger barriers than I have, or I know that Learning for Life does a lot. I don't know if that's just the bachelor level, but just helping people access services that any person in a marginalized situation, whether it be race or socioeconomic status or whatever it may be, there needs to be more support that is specific to that population, deemed proficient for themselves. So maybe marketing the program a little bit differently to, you know, be a little bit more inclusive of people who are probably afraid to even apply. So I don't know what the applications look like. I don't know where, you know, they're coming from, and how different those percentages look from who actually, you know what I mean, like what the sample would look like based on the application pool. But it might have to start with that, because if the applications are being received with a majority of Caucasians and then, you know, less minority, then perhaps that's where it needs to begin in terms of just marketing this as a more accessible college and program.
So I would say that I think there is either an assumption or a lack of ability to focus more on diversity issues in the MSW program. I have heard of folks feeling like they're leaving here with people not understanding racial diversity. I know that I have left, I feel like there's a lack of understanding about queer culture, there's a lack of understanding about size culture and fat culture, some issues that affect a lot of people, whether it be directly or indirectly. So I feel like there's sort of room for, I think, a lot more diversity, attention, focus on it in general across the board.
That there are no groups, diversity groups for people of color in the MSW program or the BSW program, and that would be something that would be great, because then the MSW could mentor first year MSWs or BSW students and kind of make it a more open and welcoming atmosphere?
That's a very tricky question, because I really believe the staff in this program, they have a lot in their plates. They're dealing with a lot of students, and they're doing the best that they can. However, I think we need to stop intellectualizing the issues of race. We need to call it for what it is, and we need to say we need to go do a better job in a hiring practice. You know, we can't just hire somebody of color just to meet the quota. You know, we can't just accept 2 persons of color in the program because we already have 65 Caucasian. So we need to have a better system. I don't know how it's going to be. I don't know who's going to construct it, but I know they can do better. And I'm hoping that my superiors can do better. Because if not, all we're doing is going back to the same old, and no change is really going to happen.
I think it's so important, for women of color to be on those front lines. Like, I just had somebody tell me 2 weeks ago, you should get a PhD. And I laughed at her. I was like, absolutely not. And then she was like, no, you shouldn't. I said, why? Why should I? Writing a dissertation is not my idea of fun. That's not something I want to do. She's like, because we need more black women, we need more women of color. I think a lot of people in this building want to understand, and I appreciate that. I think that's great, but I also think that you'll never know my struggle the way that I know it. You'll know my struggle the way that you perceive it. So things that I internalize and things that I deal with every single day, you'll never know what that feels like. You'll never know what that's like to live in every day. Like, this skin doesn't come off, and like, I'm constantly reminded of it every single day. If I had $1 for every time I was reminded that I'm a black woman, I wouldn't be in debt. Like, I would be able to pay for school out of my pocket. Like, oh, here's all the money that you need.
Right? I'm not saying that we don't have some representation of people of color or blacks or Hispanic, Latinos and stuff, but compared to our white counterparts, those numbers are not fair. They don't really adds up, and that's why I think my personal observation is, as social workers, as a social work department, we should do a better job. We should do a better job getting students in here, because if you look at it, especially people who's going to work out of Providence, they're going to encounter a lot of diversity, right? But yet our social workers that we're pumping out of here are, majority of them are from the European background, or so it's not a very balanced it's not a very balanced plate that we're putting out here. So I mean, I try to tone it down a little bit when we talk about racial diversity, because I hate to be seen as the angry black man who's over here crying and complaining about things being not right and not fair, but that's just the reality of it.